Check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
I hear you loud and clear, Coach Jay. Happy New Year, Coach Jay, and Happy New Year to our audience. Here's to a
Happy.
successful and profitable 2025.
It is sounds crystal clear from Coach Hoop. Thank you, thank you. Welcome everyone, and like Coach Paul just said, Happy New Year. First trading day of 2025 is in the books. 249 trading days to go. And I'm just going to share this in the chat real quick. But if you want a calendar to know how many trading days are left in the year, you could check out that link. Um, if anyone's counting, but there's 250 trading days total. But welcome, welcome. Hopefully everyone had a great New Year, New Year's Eve celebration. If you did do anything, for me personally, I was in the bed pretty much right after the ball dropped. Thing getting up there, I'm just like I can't hang out. I had a friend reach out and say, uh, 10 years ago, we uh, got kicked out of a club. Um, and this is a story about growth. We got kicked out of a club 10 years ago on New Year's Eve in the city, um, and just looking at how far we've come, uh, I did not get kicked out of bed on New Year's Eve. So it's growth, coach. It's growth.
Growth. What did they kick you out for celebrating too hard, or
Just having a little bit too much fun. Just having a little bit too
there you
much
go.
fun. But welcome everyone to At the Buzz Our Market Recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. And Dee says she's been there. Haven't we all? Uh,
Haven't we all?
this is our first time meeting. I'm Coach Jay. Been a Top Step Performance Coach since June of 2023, going on almost 2 years now, and been trading for the past 12 years in the futures markets for the past five. And that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep for about the same amount of time as Coach Jay, um, as a performance coach. I have 4 decades of experience in the futures market, uh, and I'm here to share my experience, some wisdom, and hopefully help you become a better trader.
So thank you for that. We'll go through the news real quick, but let us know in the chat how your 2025 started. Were you up on the day, down on the day? And let us know if you have any trading resolutions for the year. I talked a little bit about mine on Power Players. Was that Power Players that we were on? Back to the Futures on Topstep TV. But I am not going to be trading the Nasdaq for the month of January. Going to be doing a dry January on the Nasdaq and be trading the S&Ps if I'm trading equities. But what about you, Coach? You have any trading resolutions for 2025?
I'm not big on trading resolutions for the new year.
Okay.
I think those principles work every day of the year, but focused on improving, finding places to improve is what I'm going to focus on this year.
Awesome. We got Stefan says 10K up on the day. That's an amazing day. Lioness
Wow.
Rain up in your XFA as well. Small green day for Donkey Steve. Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. But let's get into it. We did have some news out this morning. We know it's Thursday, so we did have the jobless claims number come out. Actual was 211,000. Forecast was 221,000, so a little bit better than expected. We also had an S&P manufacturing PMI number come out a little bit better than expected as well. Crude oil inventories, a big miss. New year, same crude oil inventories. Big miss. Although crude is getting a little interesting. We are breaking out of that range that we've been in. We'll talk about that when we get to the charts. But anything else you've seen on the news front, Coach?
Um, Nothing that you didn't already cover. Um, kind of, I don't think the news had much effect. It feels just really thin markets. And we'll go over more of that here in a minute, but nothing to add on the news front at all.
Let's get into it. I'll switch over to our quote board, and we will look at the top percentage movers on the day. Now, there are about 35 different markets that we can trade with top step accounts, not just the equities. And we are going to go over the top percentage movers to the downside first. We had the euro down 0.9%. Uh, British pound futures down 1.6%, and wheat futures down 1.09% for our biggest percentage movers to the downside. Haven't really seen those be in our top percentage movers a whole lot. So that's a new way to start the year. And to the
Yeah,
upside, we go ahead, coach.
we never talk about the euro anymore.
Never, never. That's a first. I think since we've been doing at the buzzer on Topstep TV on YouTube, I think that's the first time the euro has been in the top percentage movers. So interesting to start the year. Um,
Yeah.
to the upside, oh, and I got to put together my spreadsheet for all of these. But to the upside, we have crude oil up 1.94%, RBOB gasoline futures up 2.11%, and silver up 2.59% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. To talk about
But
our big four, we have the S&P is down 0.22%, the Nasdaq down 0.17%. We already talked about crude oil, and we have gold up 1.16%. Go ahead, coach. You were going to say something.
no, there's some different. Even there, silver making that on the top performers of the day. Interesting. New Year's, when we have these all these different contracts. What that means, I don't know. But silver. When's the last time we had silver as a star?
In a little while, but if we look at the chart, and we'll get into the equities in a second, but if we look at the silver chart from last night, uh, it did present some urgency. Did present some urgency.
Nice. Yeah.
Here it is here. And if you're wondering what we mean by urgency, we have a 30-minute opening range starting from last night's open. We have VWAP attached to that range, and we can see volume left that range pretty early. There was a huge spike in volume in silver right as the Asian session was opening, um, and that volume held for the rest of the day. If we go down to a shorter time frame chart, I was actually watching the charts when this happened. It was, that 30-minute candle that we just framed out was pretty much 2 3-minute bars. Um, it was the first 6 minutes of the Asian session open, um, and that was most of the move.
That was a New Year allocation, in my estimation. Some fund or entity said, "You got to own some silver." Okay, it's the first trading day of the year. Buy it, and there was no one. There, it looked like that move, like you said, on 3-minute chart. Is that they just took the offers out, and when they stopped, the short-term sellers had no place to go. They were caught. Um, ve- Very interesting. Let's look at a little longer. What does a daily look like in silver?
Here is a daily chart here. Let me make these charts a little bit bigger. Here's a daily. Pull up your moving averages as well. We're still under the 200 moving average on the daily. Uh,
Hmm.
what are you seeing there, coach?
Uh, I'm seeing it's still not a good buy under that 200. We'll see. Um, I'd look for a place to sell tonight. Um, v- but I found that interesting that someone wanted it, and for what reason, we will never know. We just know there was what buying. Can this buying take it higher? Well, that's why we trade. Right now, I would look for failed buying in the half hour and look to sell it.
Thank you for that, Coach. Got great filibuster saying ZB is a really nice instrument to trade. It is. It is. If we look at a ZB chart here, this is on a daily, and we'll get to the equities in a second. But the treasury products, Coach Paul is saying it all 2024. Great markets to trade as well. If we look at ZB from last night, and this is the 30-year funds, really nice trade as well. Um, I was looking at a trade here. If we look at the session open, which is 8 a.m. Eastern time, here's that opening range, right? 8 a.m. Eastern time up at the highs here. Really nice urgency sell side right back to uh, the Globex opening range. So there's a ton of different markets to trade, a ton of opportunity out there. I think for the first day of the year, most of the markets we trade uh, presented opportunities, which is great, which is what we want to see. You could have traded gold, crude, the 30-year equities, whatever it was, there was opportunity today. Um, with that being said, opportunity to lose money as well. But as long as it's managed losses, then that's what we look for. Happy New Year to you as well, Coach Vince in the chat. Good to see you. Let's go over to the
Happy New
equities.
Year, Coach Vince. Let's go.
I am on the S&P. Um, when
That's because you're having a dry January with the Nasdaq. Is that why we're there?
it is. We can look at the Nasdaq as well. But for me at least, and this might be selfish, guys. I'm sorry. But me and Coach Paul run the show here. I'm gonna start every equities talk with the S&Ps at least for January. Um, hopefully, uh, and I've seen some traders say it as well. We need some more S&P talk on Topstep TV. So there we go. Here it is. We have the S&Ps here, Coach, under the 200 moving average
Mhm.
on the 30-minute, uh, which looks like a great sell as well, right? I know for you, Coach, under the 200 moving average, you're looking for opportunities to sell. Um, there was opportunity on both sides in this market today. If we look at last night's open, initially there was a decent sell-off, pretty big range bound day, I think is what today was. Um, we sold off early in the overnight session, recovered most of that, but this big round number up here is 6,000. We could not trade above on that pop up. Again, still under the 200 moving average. So maybe this is just looking for opportunities to sell. We had jobless claims come out this morning, and pretty much after that jobless claims print, it was a sell. Do you trade the equities at all today, Coach?
Yeah, I traded and basically made money in the dry January Nasdaq,
Okay.
and lost a little in the S&P. So I caught the downside on the Nasdaq, um, and I bought. I'm sorry, I got the downside on the S&P and a mini Nasdaq. I made a little on the a little upside last night buying it. All in all, it was a violent, unchanged day.
Yes, it was.
I um, t- it seems like there was vacuums on both sides. No commitment to trade. Um, we'll see if anything changes tomorrow. I don't foresee that, or I guess Monday. Um, but even though that we had some nice moves, it was not an easy trade. Um, like I said, it was violent when they had the moves. I don't. It seemed to me there was no what I would call paper, no liquidity, no one there to take the other side. Matter of fact, it reminded me of when was filling paper and I had to sell, and all the locals knew it, and there was no paper to buy the other side. They race you. So if I say at 5, they say at 4. At 3, they go at 2. Except for now, it's so much quicker. Um, that break, what was that, about 11 o'clock, 11:30? That, that was vicious. Um,
Yes, it was. Up to that point, I was talking to some traders in the Discord chat, and we were saying, today's pretty much just a big range bound day. Marking out a few different levels here on this chart, really quick. You can see the purple box up here is our jobless claims range, and then we have the 3-minute opening range from the New York session, and then outside of that sell off, we were talking about this being a pretty range bound session, right? the market presented opportunities to both sides. The trade that I took in the S&Ps was similar to the trade Nick Fortick took, right around here where we pushed below the daily low at the point. On the way back up, bought it at 59.27, looking for a trade back up to VWAP at the least. But then from that point, we had the opening range low holding, VWAP below the range, and that's exactly where that sell off came from. Um, in a really strong move. Not when I think most people expected. We normally talk about the lunchtime trade being fairly slow, but if we look at that, 30-minute, 45-minute period, that was the highest volume consistently that we had all day, outside of the open, which normally does not happen. So 2025 off to an interesting start, uh, but a ton of opportunity.
Yeah, there was opportunity. I will say that today is a test of discipline for most traders. Um, if you don't limit your losses in your account, this is the kind of day, and I see it where a lot of accounts get blown out. It's all right to lose, but it's not all right to have unfettered risk. Don't allow that to happen to yourself. In the program, you can limit dollar amount. Mine is at 12%. I don't recommend more than 15% if you want to survive and and thrive. Um, I just saw today that move. I had it stepped away, and I had just gotten out of a short because I had to go run an errand. I came back and what is that? 50 points in the S&P. I was like 45, 50 points. I was stunned.
Too. I mean, it happened in 20 minutes. 20 minutes were 70 points to the downside, um, where if you were not managing your risk, that could be your account gone there, right? Where it's okay to be wrong, like you just said, coach, but it's not okay to be wrong at the expense of your account or, um, you know, just holding on and hoping that a trade comes back to you. You could always get out and get back
Have
in. The
you
one
ever
thing I
done that, coach?
Oh yeah, I've done it a lot. I've done it a lot. But we've talked about this before. But anytime you do that, it's a decision, um, where you're saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm going the apathetic route. I don't care. Either it's going to work or I blow the account. I get a reset or whatever it is." It's not the way we want to approach trading, because as we build accounts over time, you're going to have those drawdowns, right? That you want to be able to work through. Uh, so just accepting what the loss is prior to putting the trade on, and then going from there. It's part of the reason I'm moving over to trading the S&Ps at least for January. And JD, I saw your comment in the chat saying I'll be back to trading the Nasdaq tomorrow. I'm not, but yeah, manage our risk, and
Uh,
anything is possible from that point.
wow. It
See that,
starts
Coach?
this early in the year.
Right? You see that?
It's like I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And everybody says, no, you're not.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, let's see
It's a
it.
tough crowd here.
Right.
I support you, Coach Jay. I
Thank
think
you.
you can do it.
I appreciate you, Coach. The one thing I do like, and the reason I'm marking this out, we talk about this a decent amount, but marking out that news candle, and seeing how the market trades around there. This jobless claims kind of area up here was, um, of course, in hindsight, but you could do this in real time. Presents a really nice opportunity to take a short in that range bound activity. We got up to this zone and the market consolidated there for a half an hour, so it wasn't the cleanest short. You did have to wait, but it presented an area of opportunity to take that trade, and that's based on knowing the range of that news candle, and going from there. Coach Hoop just called it out. I did have a decent trade, to the long side, during Back to the Futures, where kind of to show you what that trade was based on. We had this kind of bottom in formation here. It looks a lot like the top of the market did, right? Where we have a ton of wicks here. If I go out to a 30-minute chart, All of these wicks on the bottom of these 30-minute candles telling me that the potential to the downside may be running out here on the equities. And then we had, which candle was it? Was this one. So I got long at 5,900, and we saw a what looked like a quick sell-off, but sellers again failed here. So this is telling me that my risk can go below where these sellers failed, and then just looking for areas for the market to close above to trail my stop, right? And the target would have been the target on this trade was 59.25, and why 59.25? Just whole number level in the middle of that sell-off that we had earlier in the day, and anchored VWAP right below that. And we can kind of see 59.25 held to the upside. But pretty nice trade if anyone was to catch that one also.
Yeah, nice call.
Thank you, coach. I'll move over to the Nasdaq, coach. Go out to a Let's go out to a daily. Since we didn't look at the daily on the S&Ps. What are you seeing on this daily chart, coach?
Um, a lot of pressure. But this we're under the 20, and we've been now for 2 days. Did we settle below the 50, or we're right at it?
Looks like we
Um,
closed below it.
we closed below it. That's a red flag. Um, when's the last time we closed below the 50?
Outside of the last day of the year, it's been a while. Uh,
Yeah. So
a really long time. Back in
November,
September.
September.
Yep.
Um, it needs to rally tomorrow. Um, my expectation, and I put that word in quotes, expectations, or that money is going to come in and buy this beginning of the year. Okay, that's my
Okay.
expectation. I don't.
Right.
Here's this is what's going. We're under the 50. For me to get bullish, would have to be over the 50 and claim that. And number two, to have to settle at least above the half hour 200 moving average. This looks kind of heavy here. But with stocks, when it looks really heavy, probably time to buy it.
Right.
Uh, but technically, I don't like it here. I would need it to really recover that 50-day moving average um, at the least before we get some kind of surge. If not, it doesn't. You know, buyers are not here, and we're still now we're under that big engulfing candle from FOMC. Let's frame that one out. In other words, this is a daily. We can frame that out. We have broken out of that range. So we recovered what, about 50, 62.5% of that and failed. I don't think this market could take any kind of selling. That's my feeling. Um,
You think if it steps in, it's gonna go?
yeah, and it'll go to the 200 pretty quickly.
Yep.
Um, I mean, it's not how I mean, we've been watching this, and we said, look, the last time it was about, it wasn't July was the big break, so it was last March when we broke, I think.
This is April
Yeah,
here.
yeah, April, that's that pinch. We got under the 50 and broke pretty well. Um, I can see that happening, or at least go down to the 200. Um, so now if we go down to that half hour,
Mhm. Let's go down to the half hour. And if we remember just 2024, back to the daily real quick, the beginning of 2024, I
mhm.
think the first week of the year we sold off as well. So I wouldn't be too surprised at seeing that. The difference with this year is we have a change of administration in the U.S., and that is January 20th. So just kind of keeping the whole picture in mind. Again, we day trade here, so I'm going to trade the markets that present themselves to me every day. But just thinking about the potential for when, if at all, buyers or volume may step back into the market. Um, we do have a pretty pivotal day, at least in the U.S. On the 20th. But here we are on the 30-minute chart, Coach.
All right. Starting we're under the 200. We've been under it, I think, since the first Friday of the week, Monday. um, we can't, and we're trending lower. Rallies are being sold. So at the very least, I would have to have it close above the 200 for me to want to buy it. And it's not there. So I'll trade the Nasdaq for you. I'll look for a place right now. I wouldn't be shy to sell it. So we'll see what the first half an hour gives us tonight.
Similar to the S&Ps here, trading around major levels, this 21,000 level to the downside where we had those wicks on the bottom, but then again to the upside, 21,500 major psych level that's under that 200 moving average. We see a push up into it overnight on lighter volume, and then a rejection as soon as the New York session volume comes in. Anything else on the equities, Coach? If not, we will move on to crude oil.
Let's go to crude.
Go to crude. And
Perking
Evelyn,
some interest.
yes, it is. Evelyn Keller, shout out to you. Talking about the likes, let's hit that like button for 2025. If you made it to 2025 and you're here watching with us, we appreciate you being here. Hit that like button already. And I'm okay reminding people to do it because I usually don't remember until I hear Mohammed say it on Top Step TV. So hit that like button if you like what you're hearing here today. Crude oil, Coach, we did it. We did it. We broke out of the range.
Yeah, we broke out of the range. And what's that blue line?
So this is a blue line on a daily chart that we drew from the high of the year in 2024. And it is a downtrend line,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which was the high of the day today. So shout out to whenever we drew this line. It was a couple of weeks ago, but that was your call to draw that there, Coach. And really nice rejection right at that level, right around 73.70s, we'll call it. So we broke out of this higher time
Yeah.
frame, three month range that we were in, but we're still in a downtrend.
We're still in a downtrend. We're above the 200-day moving average. We're at a decision point um, from a trend point of view. But this is the most sustained rally we've had in a couple months. But look at it. We
Yes,
had
sir.
this similar situation. Yeah, last time we touched this trend line. So tomorrow, and what did we have when we touched it? The next day we had a false breakout and then an absolute beating. So, um, did we settle above the 200 moving average?
We did. We did.
We're right there.
Yep. We settled above it. Right
Okay.
now it's at
We get
72.50. So like you said, decision making area, right? Let's see what happens. It's an interesting spot.
yeah. First day of the year, we go back and test it. Um, let's look at the half hour, see where we're at. So, um, I don't know. I think tonight's going to be an interesting night there. I don't know. I'm going to watch that first half an hour and attach a VWAP to it. Um, a failure, what would that look like? First half an hour, attach a VWAP, and we get urgency on the sell side. I think that's a good probability trade with low risk, possible big reward. Um, and I'm going to play the short side, even though it's over the 200. I'm not going to give it much room.
Kind
So
of
I'm going to look
leaning
for a place
on
to lean.
with that. Are you kind of leaning on the higher time frame analysis, right? If we go out to a daily where it says we're still in that downtrend. Um, so although in the medium time frame, that 30-minute, we're above the 200. On the higher time frames, it's a pretty good spot to sell it.
Yeah, I want to look to sell a failure of this buying
Gotcha.
with, you know, with taking, I'm not risking more than $200. If it does break and it gets momentum, I'm looking for a play of that engulfing candle. So I'm willing to risk $200
Yeah,
if the opportunity sets up, and it's got to be urgent. If not, it's going to be really interesting. But if you've said how many times have we said this? Sell it up there. Don't. But if it closes above that trend line and the 200,
story.
this is a place where on a swing trade, just buy calls.
Interesting.
Now it's harder to trade this in the futures on a day trade
Outrights, yeah.
because it'll start picking up some volatility. Um, but we're at a spot. This is once the oh, what is that? Is that the ATR?
That is the ATR. Yep.
So there's no. I mean, the ranges are tiny, and this is how breakouts happen. So let's watch this. What does that mean? We're The volatility in the crude is gone out, has been squeezed out. If it is if it decides to break out, what would happen? The the ranges would get bigger. So this is a key. This is tomorrow is going to be very interesting. I'm not having a dry crude January myself. I'm going to look either way tomorrow. If it closes above, we could pick up some momentum. So
Eye on it.
let's let's put a trend line from that low, most recent low in the middle.
One right here.
No, the lowest low of that chart. No, the lowest. Yeah. What is that called? A
The
pennant,
Dorito.
a Dorito, a pennant. Um, you say tomato. I say this might be a great buy. Um, hmm. We're like we said, this opportunities come back to the crude.
We got
Um,
D in the
I'll tell
chat.
you what.
I was on Topstep TV with D,
Yeah,
and she said she might not be trading crude all year. And I get it. Where it looks like an opportunity here, and I see what you're seeing, Coach. Where if we break out of this, then we can see the volatility start to pick up. But it's like you do have to prove it too.
yeah.
You got to prove it.
But, and you got to trade it.
Right. Right.
My feeling is that the risk, looking at that ATR, um, it could go either way, right? We're saying, I mean, um, but the ranges are going to get bigger. So if the ranges are going to get bigger, your risk reward is going to be favorable right now. Um, I'm I'm focused in. I think there's big play coming in crude, and I didn't say which side. Uh, I'm just,
Wait. Right.
it's
Eventually, we have to break out of this. Right. Eventually, you would think so. Anything
really, to
else
tell you the
on?
truth. Yeah,
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna. And this is not a day trade. I'm buying some call spreads, one
Nice.
by twos, because this something. Something could be amiss. I don't know, but if it goes, we're gonna say, "Wow, remember when it was down there?" Um, but that ATR volatility is pretty cheap. It's a good place to play. And maybe it is this. This breaks down to $50. I don't know, but something's going to happen here.
Anything else on crude?
I've
Pulled up
said
an
enough.
RBOB chart because I know D is looking at RBOB and nat gas to trade in place of crude. And this looks like uh, maybe a similar opportunity here. We have the 200 daily moving average here. We got that same trend line from the highs of last year.
That have been broken.
Have been broken. Very interesting. Very, very
Well, at the
interesting.
least, I'm going to go fill up my cart.
There we go. JD asked quarterly call spreads, Coach Paul, on crude.
Quarterly? Yeah, well, monthly. If it's going to
Monthly.
go, I like to buy short term. Um, and if it goes, I get multiples. But remember, crude trades, it rolls monthly, unlike financials. But no, you're so.
On
Let's.
to
What do we got here?
gold. This is gold on a daily chart. Above the 200 moving average on the daily, closed at 2670.9 today. I'm looking at a couple of different candles here in gold, this daily being one of them, this one being another. And again, gold is starting to range a little bit here. So, decision making area, I think, as well. Do we fill this imbalance to the sell side that we've had? Does gold continue the rally into 2025? We do look like we may have kind of found a bottom here, at least in a short time frame, around this 2600 area. But we need new buyers to come in and step in here, and we can see on the daily ATR that it's decreasing as well in gold. Did present a move today, 1% move to the upside. We saw the move in silver, that urgency that we saw in silver. We had a very similar trade in gold as well. What's that white line there, Coach?
200 bar moving average, the simple one.
The simple one on the 30-minute chart. We
Wow.
closed above it on the open last night. We see our opening range. We kind of came down, didn't get an exact test of it, but we're above it. We've seen trending markets hold the 20 moving average once they start to go, and that is exactly what gold did today on this 30-minute chart, kind of holding that 20 moving average and just pushing higher. It wasn't as urgent as that silver move, but uh, metals tend to run together. We can see platinum was up as well today. Uh, just a really nice trend day to the upside. The jobless claims print, I don't know what this was. This is 5 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, 4 a.m. Central. Another spike in volume. Doesn't coincide with a
Coach
market open.
D,
Go. Yeah.
did it happen on your watch? What happened there?
Any idea what might have caused a spike in volume um, around 4 a.m. Central Time? So kind of right around your London session class there. There was a spike of volume there. I don't know what it was or why it was, just the fact that it happened, but we can see, and the reason I love to point out volume this way, volume by candle is because and you could do it with a volume profile as well, but when we see price come back to that range and kind of respect that volume, kind of hold that area, really nice opportunity here. This is our jobless claims print in gold there. And just trend from there if this is where you started your trading day. Um,
Well, it's
anything
interesting.
else?
If we go back to the
Go ahead,
daily,
Coach. Yeah. Yep.
and let's do a since we're in a trend mode today. off the all-time high.
2025, year of the trends.
All right.
Want to go here or here?
No, they have to go to the highest.
That's right. This is
That
this is where my
and then that. Yeah.
yep, there we go.
Um, that's the trend line. Let's see if we can get above it. But right now, is that another Dorito?
Like it. Looks like it. We'll go from
Yeah.
I'm gonna go from this low right here.
We'll have to get Dolby on. Ask him how we would trade this Dorito.
Right. We did get a message from D here. We had PMI numbers from Europe. Can move price in gold sometimes here. Right, that is right. So if we look at this here, we had UK manufacturing PMI number come out around that time. Some numbers out of Germany and France as well. That could have caused the volatility. Kind of coincides with these volume spikes that we see here. Um, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Really, anyone in the chat trade gold at all today? I know we talk a lot about the equities, but ton of other markets to trade out there.
Great place to trade micro gold
Yes,
for
it is.
most accounts here.
Yes, it is. Um, all right, we went through the big four. Any other markets that you want to talk about, Coach?
Oh, let's look at Bitcoin. A pretty big move for the first day of the year.
On micro Bitcoin here, we're starting with the daily. What are we looking at here, Coach?
All right, bouncing off the 50-day moving average, right up to the 20. Um, downtrend line from the top has been broken, and we settled above it. Looking pretty friendly. Why right to that breakout candle high, isn't that? Um, looking friendly. But we have to break out. What's that last high up there?
Here,
Uh, yep.
right above
So
100,000. Major psych level that we know is not going to be the easiest to break above if you don't have convinced buyers. Um,
y-
so yeah, that 100,000
so
there.
boy, don't want to buy it yet. It did settle above the 200 bar moving average on the 30. I think look for a test of that. Um, but first year, more allocation. Well, yeah. So once we closed above it, the buying commenced.
Looks a
Interesting,
lot like the gold
large.
chart.
Yeah, it does. Look at that volume spike. That's one thing different in using volume in Bitcoin because it's open 24/7. There is no official opening except for Sunday night with the gaps usually. And what did we do again this second Sunday of the week? We
Hmm.
gapped higher, held that gap, broke VWAP broke out of the opening, and off we went. Um, looking pretty friendly. Um, although I don't, we'll see tonight.
This volume spike that we had here, that is right around the equities open right at 8:30 Central Time. We can see that
Uh,
volume spike set the in that 30-minute range, or really a 3-minute range, set kind of the range for the day, right? If we had the rally up overnight, and then this 3-minute range here, uh, range bound traders, this is like textbook what you want to see.
haven't
That VWAP never leaves the range, so anytime price does, that's the opportunity to fade the extreme, right? VWAP is pretty much a straight line, right? And anytime that price left that range, it was an opportunity to fade that extreme, right? And in a contract like micro Bitcoin, where it's 50 cents a tick, you could set a pretty wide stop here, which I think you need to do with range bound trading. But you could set a pretty wide stop, and if it goes and breaks it, then fine, right? That trade idea is wrong. But this is, I think this needs to go in the textbook, right? If I want to see a range bound market and I'm using volume and VWAP, it has to look exactly like this. And you can feel comfortable taking any trade now. What we say here is for educational purposes only, not trading advice. Anytime you place a trade, make sure you manage your risk. But if I'm trading a range bound market, this is exactly what I want to see. And speaking of that, we got a question. Two questions here. One from El Jefe Chico. How do you know when enough is enough?
Oh,
Go ahead, coach.
great question. And that question is outstanding in the fact that that is the crux of trading. When is enough enough? Um, I'll tell you, and I've gone through this. To me, it's 12% of my equity. Whatever my account balance, I just stop. That's enough to lose in a day. I would suggest 12 to 15%. Think about it. If you're losing that much of your equity in one day, could be in an hour, or you're not you're not in tune. That's when you stop. Do not go wild of 50% drawdown. Here's do math. If you go to 50% drawdown, you have to make 100% to get back to even. The best way to get out of a hole is to stop digging. So the deeper that hole, the harder it is. So great question. I will tell you this: 12 to 15% of your equity. So if right now, if it's a $2,000, it's about $250. No more than 300, and you have to stop.
So thank you for that, coach. And D says, I go by number of trades per day, whatever happens. D, if you can let us know how many trades that is for you. And then we had another question. How many ticks is a wide stop for Rich? I think this is where you can go with that. Let's look at it here, right? Some of us might try to trade this in whatever market this is, where we buy the low tick of the range, or we call it the range, but then we want to go with a tight stop because we don't want to lose X amount of dollars, right? Where the way we can mitigate that is by trading trading smaller size, right? Trading the micros. This is micro Bitcoin. But Coach Paul goes with a 2 ATR stop, and I saw someone mention, earlier, how do you measure ATR? Just the indicator. Indicator down here is telling me the value. You can see anytime I hover over a candle, that ATR value is going to change. So if I took the trade right here, the ATR on a 30-minute chart is 522 ticks. 2 times that is over 1,000, right? 1,044, right? 1,045, we'll call it. My stop is down here, and it's so far out of the way that it makes this a one-to-one trade. Um, if I get back to the other side of the range, uh, but it's so far out of the way that something would have to go completely wrong, right, in order for this to no longer be a range trade. And you can cut the trade well before it gets down here. But I think having a wider stop this way allows you to sit through this, right? Where if I'm looking at this on a shorter time frame chart, we can go down to a 3-minute chart, right? 300 ticks is one ATR, 600 points would be my stop, where you could see it's out of the way, where it allows this natural market fluctuation to happen, where I don't have to have a perfect entry uh, in order for my trade to work out, right? And then the same thing to the upside if I'm fading these ranges. And for me, I really like that 2 ATR stop on a range bound market because of the amount of times I've gotten wicked out trying to be too cute with a stop, right? Where we could identify a range, but it's usually not perfect. Especially with the equity markets, where, especially in the Nasdaq, where it likes to run your stops by a couple of ticks before it eventually does what you want it to.
It's a good point, Coach. In range bound days, you shouldn't get hit on a 2 ATR. And we talk maybe If you do get hit, that's the sign is time to
in a lot of
stop.
range.
That's your trade. If I get hit on it, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at an example here, right? Where we talked about the S&Ps being a range, somewhat of a range bound day, and it was a pretty wide range. Um, where, oops, pressed the wrong button there. Right, let's call that our range. We'll tighten it up a little bit. Actually, here I'm gonna go with the first 30-minute candle. Let's do that instead. See what that looks like. Okay, first 30-minute candle here, right? Where if I go with this is a range bound market. VWAP is somewhere in the middle of the range. If I short the high of it on a 30-minute coach, this is a 15-point ATR, so 30 points is my stop, and that sounds pretty expensive with a one lot mini, but you can trade micros as well. But look at how far that stop is out of the way. Where if we now go to a shorter time frame, all of this here where these are now 7-point stops. And I hear traders say, "Oh, I trade the S&Ps with a 4-point stop or a 2-point stop." Um, those are really tight right now. All of these, you had the trade direction right? You identified the extreme of the range, you got in short, but because we're trying to conserve money or conserve the account, we're going with tight stops that are going to get stopped out here. Where 30 points, and if that's too much, you could go either trade smaller or use the ATR on a shorter time frame. Where even on a 3-minute, the ATR is 8 points here, 16 points. Market-based, market-generated information for that stop. Look how far 16 points is out of the way. Now, let's say we bought the low of range here. Same thing. Now it's 22 points. 22 points still out of the way, and I have a one-to-one trade. Let's say I bought it one more time. This is the time where if this gets stopped out and I hold it, where I say, hey, this is no longer a range-bound market, I'm done taking that trade, right? And you had one, two, three opportunities with a really nice trade before it eventually broke, and you could be locked up by this point. So uh, if you're trading range bound strategy, widen those stops, scale down if the dollar amount is too big. But I've seen some traders just say it in the chat. It's the worst to get wicked out of a trade like that, and then it eventually go in your favor.
Hey, one other. With that, let's answer Yasmin's question.
Okay.
What indicator do you use to determine chop volatility? I'll answer the volatility. Coach Jay just went through it. The average true range. The difference between an average true range and the risk you want to take is the difference between what the market's volatility is and what your volatility is. If you're say I'm only 5 points and the average true range is 8, you're gonna get stopped out a lot. Why is that? Because the range is on average in your time frame, on average, it's going to hit that stop. So you want to get away from that. If you're getting stopped out a lot, this is probably why. There are times when it could be at 5, the ATR, or it could be at 3, or it could be at 8 or 16. Getting in tune with that is really important because there's the risk we're willing to take and there's the risk the market is giving. Those have to be in harmony. Um, if it's too tight, a lot of losses, which can lead to a lot of frustration and throwing the plan out the window. If you've ever suffered from that, you've traded. So, knowing that that's the volatility, start watching it and adapt. And with the chop, I'll pass it over to Coach Jay.
Thanks, Coach. And I just want to clarify something in the chat. And I think D just mentioned it as well. Louis with the one lot says, just want to clarify the period for the ATR is the default 14, not 2. So whatever period the ATR is, just double whatever it is showing for the 2-period stop. So the you're right. The default look back period for the ATR is set to 14. And when we say two ATRs, we're just doubling that value of the last 14, right? And if you change the ATR to two, it's only looking back two candles, which can skew that data a little bit. And it's not going to be far off, but I would use the 14 default and then whatever value that's giving you, multiply that value by two, right? So if you look at my charts right here, the value is 8 for this candle. So my stop would be 16 points. So back to Yasmin's question on the chop. How do I determine chop? For me, I'm going to use VWAP. VWAP and a range. So my range is usually going to be defined by a 3-minute candle, but you can do this on any time frame. And what I'm looking for is uh, first, I want to identify a range, right, based on some type of volume or a market open or something like that. And then I'm going to attach VWAP to the start of that range. And now I'm looking at the angle of VWAP, right? So does VWAP sharply leave this range? If it does, then we're likely trending from that range. Or does VWAP kind of hang around that range? It trades inside of it. Maybe it trades right through the middle of it. That's telling me that the market is maybe not in chop, but in a range right now. How do I make the distinction between a range and chop? It's the size of the range, right? So if it's a 30 point, 40 point range in the S&Ps, I would say that's a range and not chop. If it's a 10-point range, then that's just way too tight of a range for me to try to trade. So we'll look at this again on a 30-minute chart. 30 minutes here. I'm going to attach VWAP to that first 30-minute candle. VWAP is in the middle of that range. So this tells me range bound market. It's not a trend yet until VWAP breaks out of this range. Now, that what this tells me is any attempts to try to break out of it, I'm going to fade, right? As long as that VWAP is a flat line. So when the market trades up here, I should be looking to go short. When the market trades down here, I should be looking to go long. But as volume continues to come in through the day, that may change. We can see here that 50% of this range starts to hold. VWAP is starting to slope to the downside. This is maybe an indication that that move to the upside doesn't have volume behind it. And now I'm looking in a different area. So, uh, you could do the same thing here. We just, pointed out a range example. But now if I attach VWAP to this, I just picked a random candle here, but we see the slope of VWAP. That tells me that the market is no longer ranging and it is trying to trend since the time I anchored that VWAP. Hopefully that makes sense. What else do we got here? What time do we got? Oh, we got 2 minutes left.
Oh,
Time goes by
well,
quick.
well, save the rest of the questions for tomorrow while you hit that like button, I'd say.
Yes. Hit that like button for sure. We got one more question here I think we can get to. What's the difference between a range and a channel? Is it the same? I'm going to say no. And I would say it depends on the. So I would say how am I going to say this? Every channel is a range, but not every range is a channel. Is that right? You get what I'm trying to
Mm,
say there, coach? Am I just making shit up?
yeah, I know what you're trying to say. I would just say a range is a one candle. Think of it as one candle is one type of range, but a channel is a series of candles connected with highs and lows. Um, so you could have a range, big range, and a big candle, but to me, a range is a series of candles. I
Andrew, did
mean,
you
a
say
channel. Did I say
uh,
range? There we go.
yeah. A
A
channel is a
channel
range.
is a
A channel is a
series.
range with a slope, right? So it's kind of like what we see here, right? Where
Yeah.
we have lower highs, right, and lower lows. This is a downwards channel, right? The difference would be in a range where we would have, uh, flat highs and lows, and the market kind of just uh, ping pongs between these two. This would be a range. This would be a channel. There we go.
Very good.
Geometry. Um, I think that is all for today. Let me just check my notes real quick. Back to doing plugs. If you are eligible for our payout club, that means you've taken over $5,000 in payouts from Topstep. Make sure you fill out this link that I'm going to drop in the chat for our payout club. You'll get your pin and your hat. MP has mentioned that in 2025, potentially, the payout club is going to have different tiers. So we'll start with 5K and increase from there. So you want to make sure you get on that list for when that does happen. But fill that out. The team will be mailing out your pin and your hat only to the US currently, for any traders who are eligible after taking 5K in payouts. And we are also always looking for traders to get on TopstepTV. So I'm going to drop another link in the chat for our casting call. Fill that out. I think you're going to have to submit a video. Dolby's going to watch all the videos. And if you want to get on Topstep TV to trade, maybe you get to trade with one of us or your favorite Topstep TV personalities, fill out that form as well. And the team will get back to you from there. Last but not least, we have our Topstep Discord. Topstep Discord, there are going to be coaches, classes in Discord. Coach Hoop does a class every day at 4:30 Central Time. Coach Ray at 6 p.m. and Coach Vince at 7. And then of course we have Coach Dakota on Slow Markets on YouTube at 7:30 Central Time every Monday through or Sunday through Thursday, and Deanna with uh, the London session at 3:30 a.m. Central Time every Monday through Thursday. But I just put the Discord link in the chat. Um, Bobby's World says, Happy New Year, Coach Paul. Get me back on Top Step TV. Bobby, reach out to Tim. Reach out to Tim. Uh, anything else you got before we go, Coach?
Um, Welcome the new year with positive attitude that you can execute your trading plan. We don't talk about that, I don't think, enough as an industry of mindset. Being confident that you can execute your plan by taking losses and winners too. So in 2025, I would suggest that you hone in on your trading plan and execute it and succeed. That's all I have for today.
Like that, Coach. We need confidence in this game, right? We need confidence. We do a lot of work to kind of build those plans, but you got to believe in it in order to click the button behind it. So, confident 2025. I like that. I got nothing else. I think I'll be on Top Step TV tomorrow for Power Hour. Uh, but I will see you all then. And if not, we will see you for At the Buzzer. Let's have a great 2025, Coach. Great start to the year. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.